Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so you sent us something really intriguing this Easter workbook for little kids, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Packed with the ABCs, 123s, shapes, all that early learning stuff,
Yeah,
writing, coloring,
just
matching.
basics.
Now, you might look at it and just think, oh, that's cute. But we saw it as a really fantastic opportunity to kind of unpack some fundamental ideas about how kids actually start learning.
Right. And for our listener, the person who wants to get to the core of things quickly, this workbook, as simple as it looks, is actually a surprisingly direct way to understand those very first educational steps. It's amazing how much foundational learning is sort of embedded in these playful activities.
Absolutely. So think of this deep dive as like a rapid-fire download on early childhood principles, but all through this Easter theme.
Yeah, a good lens.
Our mission today really is to explore the educational DNA, let's say, of this workbook. And it's worth mentioning the proceeds go to support online learning for underprivileged kids, which is, a wonderful bonus.
Definitely a plus.
The workbook itself has a pretty neat flow. It starts with simple stuff, spotting shapes, colors, then kind of gently moves to harder things like counting, writing, even a bit of adding. Okay, let's dive in.
Well, what's fascinating there is the inherent logic in that structure. You start with visual discrimination, just what things look like,
Right.
and then you move towards understanding quantity, symbols. It really mirrors how our brains naturally process new info, right? Moving from the concrete to the more abstract.
Okay, so let's kick off with activity one, shapes and colors.
Mm.
Simple instructions. Color the shape inside the egg using specific colors: red, blue, green, yellow, orange, pink, violet. Feels, well, obvious for a kid's workbook, but what's the real significance of starting right there?
Well, this is where some really fundamental cognitive development gets going. Recognizing and naming colors and shapes isn't just about knowing red from blue. It's actually the bedrock for both pre-literacy and
Oh,
pre-numeracy.
interesting. How so?
Think about it. Letters are basically just variations of simple shapes, right? AB is circles and a line, and A is triangles and lines.
Ah, okay, I see that.
And being able to categorize things by shape and color. That's an early form of sorting and classifying, absolutely crucial skills for organizing information later on. In fact, some research suggests a pretty strong link between early spatial reasoning skills, which you nurture with shape recognition, and later success in STEM fields.
Wow, okay, the STEM connection isn't immediately obvious. That's a great point. All right, next up, activity two, counting eggs. You see groups of eggs like 1 to 10, and the kid circles the right number. What's the key learning here beyond just, reciting 1, 2, 3?
The real magic here, I think, is understanding one-to-one correspondence.
Okay, what's that?
It's the idea that each egg you touch, or even just look at, represents exactly one. It sounds simple, but it's a huge conceptual leap. And notice how the eggs are arranged differently in each problem.
Yeah, sometimes they're in a line, sometimes scattered.
Exactly. That small detail stops kids from just learning a visual pattern by rote. It forces them to actively count each individual egg. It builds a more flexible understanding of quantity, what educators later call number sense. Some kids might even start to subitize.
Sopatize.
Yeah, instantly recognizing small groups, like seeing three dots and just knowing it's three without counting one, two, three.
Ah, gotcha. So you're not just training them to count in a neat row. Okay, activities 3 and 4 are a bit different. Draw your own Easter egg and copy the Easter egg. These feel more, well, creative, letting kids express themselves. What are the educational wheels turning here?
They definitely tap into creativity for sure, but they're also powerhouses for developing fine motor skills.
Okay.
Those precise little movements of the hands and fingers, they're crucial for everything from holding a pencil correctly to like buttoning a coat. Draw your own encourages imagination, yes, but copy the Easter egg is specifically working on visual motor coordination.
Right, the eye-hand thing.
Exactly. The brain's ability to process what the eyes see and then translate that into physical action. Think of it as building the neural pathways needed for controlled movement, for precision skills that directly support handwriting later on.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's all connected.
Yeah.
Now, activity 5, color by number. This looks like the classic kind of thing that keeps kids busy, right? Color sections based on a key. 1 red, 2 yellow. Some get trickier, adding pink, violet, green, orange. What's the value here beyond just following the directions?
This activity is actually pretty clever. It reinforces several things all at once, obviously number recognition and color association, like you said.
Hmm.
But it's also subtly teaching the skill of following a key or a set of rules, which is fundamental for problem solving in almost any context. And as those color keys get more complex, it challenges the child's attention span and their ability to manage multiple bits of information simultaneously. That's a great exercise in focus, really.
Okay, so we've covered visual numerical. Activity 6 is the Easter egg alphabet. Lots of just repetitive practice, writing uppercase A, lowercase a, all the way to Z. In our super digital world, why is physically forming letters by hand still seen as such a cornerstone of early literacy?
That's a really important question these days, isn't it? While typing is obviously a vital skill, the actual physical act of handwriting engages different parts of the brain. It helps solidify the connection between the visual form of a letter and its sound.
Okay.
It also significantly contributes to developing that fine motor control and hand-eye coordination we mentioned, which, as we discussed, have benefits way beyond just writing. Some research even suggests handwriting might improve memory and comprehension compared to just typing notes.
That's fascinating, a nuance I hadn't really considered. Okay, following that is Activity 7, Easter Bunny number. Similar idea, repetitive writing practice, but for numbers 1 through 10. Same principle, right? Reinforcing the formation.
Exactly. Repetition is absolutely key for building muscle memory. The more a child practices forming those numerals the right way, the more automatic it becomes.
Right.
And that frees up cognitive resources later on so they can focus on the math concepts themselves instead of struggling with just how to write the numbers down.
Now we're getting into some early math. Activity 8, Easter egg addition. Simple problems like 2 eggs plus 1 egg, using pictures as counters. Why start addition in this very visual, sort of tangible way?
Well, using visual aids like the eggs makes these abstract mathematical ideas much more concrete for young kids. They can physically see the groups of eggs coming together to make a bigger group.
Okay.
It helps them grasp the fundamental concept of addition combining quantities before they move on to just the abstract symbols, the numbers alone. These basic problems, they're really the essential groundwork for all future math understanding.
Right, right. Activities 9 and 10 are matching Easter eggs and Easter mazes. These feel like classic kid staples. What developmental skills are getting sharpened here?
Okay, the matching activities where you pair up identical eggs, they're excellent for developing visual discrimination.
Spotting differences.
Exactly. The ability to spot subtle differences and similarities between images. It's surprisingly important for reading, actually, where you need to distinguish between similar-looking letters like B and D.
Good point.
The Easter mazes, on the other hand, are fantastic for boosting problem-solving skills and spatial reasoning, the ability to mentally visualize and kind of navigate pathways. Both types of activities strengthen critical thinking and visual perception, but in really engaging ways.
Activity 11, Easter egg hunt, asks kids to count different kinds of eggs hidden in a picture. This feels like a more playful way to practice counting, maybe more like a real-world context.
Absolutely. By embedding the counting within a fun scenario like an egg hunt, it just becomes more motivating, more relatable. It also requires the child to apply their counting skills in a slightly less structured setting. They have to identify the different types of eggs, focus their attention within that busy scene, and then accurately count each category. It's applying the skill.
And then you have Activity 12, Easter shadow matching. You connect the Easter pictures to their shadows. What's the learning curve in this one?
Shadow matching is actually a really insightful way to deepen visual perception and understanding form, spatial relationships.
How so?
It requires the child to think a bit abstractly, about how light hits objects, how a 3D shape translates into a 2D shadow. It's about recognizing the core features of an object even when its visual presentation changes drastically.
Interesting. Activity 13 is also called Easter hunt, but this time you spot the one element that's different in a group, like a row of bunnies with one chick mixed in. What cognitive muscles does this flex?
This one directly targets critical thinking and attention to detail. The child has to carefully look at each item, compare them based on their features, and then identify the one that doesn't fit the established pattern. Okay.
This is a foundational skill for logical reasoning and pattern recognition, which are essential in so many areas of learning, not just academics.
Activity 14, fill it up. It gives instructions like draw 3 flowers in the basket or draw 5 eggs. This really emphasizes following instructions, doesn't it?
Precisely. These activities are all about listening comprehension or reading comprehension if they read it themselves, and the ability to follow multi-step directions. The child has to process the instructions, remember what they need to draw, how many, and then execute that plan. That skill is just fundamental for success in any learning environment, really. Classroom, home, anywhere.
Makes sense. Now we move to activity 15, Easter writing. Practice writing specific Easter words. Basket, eggs, bunnies, lamb, nest in both uppercase and lowercase. This seems to directly support early literacy by connecting letters to actual meaning. Exactly right. This activity bridges that gap between just recognizing and forming individual letters and actually using them to create meaningful words. By practicing these familiar Easter words, kids are building vocabulary, reinforcing letter formation in a context they understand, and starting to grasp the relationship between letters and sounds, the very beginnings of reading and spelling.
Activity 16, guess the image. Shows a picture, like a basket, and gives word choices. Basket, bag, dog, bunny. You circle the right one. This feels like vocabulary reinforcement, linking words to visuals.
Absolutely. It strengthens that crucial association between visual recognition and language. It tests their understanding of vocabulary and their ability to select the correct label for what they see. It's a core component of language acquisition and comprehension, definitely.
Okay, nearly there. Activities 17 and 18 are Easter coloring alphabet and Easter coloring number. The instruction is specific. Color letters RAD, color numbers BLUE. It's combining letter number recognition with color ID and following specific instructions. It feels like it's layering different skills together.
It is, yeah, and that's what makes it so effective. These activities integrate multiple cognitive tasks all at once. The child has to recognize if it's a letter or a number, recall the correct color instruction for each category, and then execute the coloring accurately. This kind of multisensory engagement can really solidify learning and improve retention.
What's also really interesting is the inclusion of my activity checklist
Yeah.
at the end of sections. Kids can track their progress, check off what they did, and even answer what I have learned after each bit.
Yeah.
That seems like a great way to get them thinking about their own learning process.
Oh, that's a really valuable element. It promotes metacognition.
What?
Metacognition, basically, thinking about your own thinking, thinking about how you learn. By prompting children to reflect, even simply on what they've learned, the workbook encourages self-awareness. It helps them become more active and intentional learners, which are skills absolutely crucial for, well, lifelong learning.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then to wrap it all up, there's a certificate of achievement at the very end. It's just a nice touch, right?
Yeah.
Positive reinforcement.
Absolutely. A certificate gives a tangible reward for their effort. It helps build a sense of accomplishment, pride in what they've learned. Positive reinforcement is such a powerful motivator, especially for young kids, and it helps create a really positive association with the whole idea of learning.
So taking a step back, looking at the whole thing,
Yeah.
this Easter workbook, it's clearly much more than just a fun little activity book to pass the time around the holiday. It's a really thoughtfully structured introduction to a surprisingly comprehensive set of fundamental early learning skills.
Exactly. And for you, our listener, dissecting this seemingly simple resource offers, well, a surprisingly deep understanding of those foundational building blocks of early childhood development. You can really see how each activity is chosen carefully to target specific cognitive skills, specific motor skills, all paving the way for future academic success.
It really makes you wonder, though, when you see how much intentional learning is packed into something as simple as this Easter workbook. It makes you consider how much foundational knowledge we all acquire through what seems like just basic play and engagement in our early years.
Good point.
What other everyday tools or activities, maybe ones we don't even think about, might hold equally valuable insights into these fundamental educational principles? It's definitely some food for thought.
It is indeed.
Thanks for exploring this deep dive with us.